Hey, today let's learn how to set up effects on your Allen Heath SQ Series console. If we haven't met yet, my name is James and I help worship leaders, church sound techs, and tech directors eliminate the mystery and frustration around sound at church. So if you want to do a great job of running sound at church and have a lot of fun doing it, you found the right place. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and welcome to the club of sound ninjas. In our setup video, which I'll put a link up here or down in the description, I don't know where it's going to be, but you'll find a link to a video where we set up our console and we put our effects returns on layer B and our effects sends are effects 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got to choose what effects are going to go where. So I've got my drum verb labeled for effects 1, and I like to have my instrument verb on number 2. So I'm going to go ahead and go here and label it. And there's only 6 spots. So instrument verb, that's what it's going to be called. And vocal verb is on number 3, and delay is going to be on number 4. All right, so we've labeled them on the returns. Now we need to send the appropriate channels to those. So up here, we're going to hit effects 1, and we're going to go to layer A, which is where our drums are, and we're going to send all of our drums here. Now these are already set up as post fader, so we don't have to worry about it post or pre because they're effects sends. They already did that for us. Then on effects 2, we're going to send our instruments. I don't usually send a lot of reverb instruments to reverb. Sometimes like something like a keyboard or an electric guitar might already have a ton of reverb on it. As I'm thinking about the sounds for this song, yeah, I'm going to pull these back, at least some. So it's mostly an acoustic guitar reverb. It just puts it in a space. Maybe we'll have it down 5 dB. I don't know. We're going to play around with it and listen to it later. On effects number 3, I'm going to go to my other layer and send all my vocals. And effects 4, all my vocals again. So this is going to be my vocal delay. Now, if we either select each of the returns, right, we can get to the effects rack that way and see what effects processor is there, or we can use the effects button and we can see the different effects processors that we have along the left side of the screen. So our first one is the SMR live reverberation. Whatever that means, I don't know. But we're going to listen to it and find out what it's like. We're going to mute everything except for the drums so that we can bring the drum reverb back in and take a listen to what that's like. I want to get out of effects 4, go back to our main mix. Now, if you want to get back to the left-right bus, you can tap this button again. So we're on mix 1, we tap it one more time and it goes back to the left-right bus. You always want to go right back to the left-right bus because you never want to get in a pinch where you're accidentally adjusting somebody's monitor mix when you think you're trying to adjust the front of house mix. It's a bad deal. And it trips up a lot of engineers. So you're not alone if you do that. Okay, that's not so bad. Let's turn up the pre-delay a little bit. Right now it's on Hall Chamber Small. I'm going to see if I can switch this algorithm real quick. I'm going to go to Library. I'm going to go to Reverbs. I'm going to go to EMT. I like plates on drums. I'm going to shorten the time a little bit. I'm going to take down the pre-delay just for a minute. Okay, this is feeling pretty good. I've got the level way louder than it should be, right? It should not be this big, right? So we're going to turn this down, but I want you to be able to hear what the reverb is doing, and then we'll put it in its context. That feels better. When I mute it, it needs to be more conspicuous in its absence than its presence, meaning it should feel like it went away more than it feels like we added it. Now there's a couple other things that we can do to shape the reverb. One that I really like to do on drums is the low frequency cut. I actually like to turn this up really high. Let me turn it up a little bit. Now it doesn't feel like the kick drum is so boomy. That's why I don't mind sending the kick drum to the reverb because of this high cut. Or this low frequency cut, high pass filter. I can make it sound farther away by making it darker. Now I can make the drums sound a little bit closer and push the room back a little bit by adding some pre-delay. Now let's listen to that in the context with the rest of the band. Did you hear how the reverb pushed the drums back a little bit in the mix, right? So they're gonna have a little bit more distance and depth when we turn the reverb on, but it's not like we're hearing the big for forever. So that's what I like, and the EMT, it's a plate algorithm. I think it sounds good on this console. Let's move on to what I would add to the acoustic guitar, and maybe the rest of the instruments, but we'll have to see. Here we've got a stereo delay loaded so far. So I'm going to go to my library and go to my reverbs. And let's see, maybe we want to do a Hall 480. We'll try this. So we're going to put our reverb time at about the same time as we had for the drums. So that's going to keep them in about the same space. This is about 2 seconds. So I'm going to dial this down. You don't have to get super nerdy about tenths and thousandths of a second, but we're just going to try this and then see how this sounds. So let's give it a shot. I'm going to turn up the high pass filter to about 200 on here. And I'm going to turn down the high cut as well. I'm going to send all the instruments to the same level, so we'll get all of them in there. And we'll unmute the keys as well. And of course the song ends, but let's listen to it without it anyway. Makes it a little bit more lively. Now, in a live sound context, we don't necessarily have to add reverb on everything because we've got speakers in a room and those are reverberant. So we've got a reverberant field already. This can add just a little bit extra depth, or if you're mixing broadcast, that can help it a whole lot too. All right, so this level is way too loud. We're going to dial this back some, but I want to hear what it's adding before I tuck it back. So -12 to -18 is a good starting place for return levels. Let me mute it and see what it's like. All right, so it makes it sound a little bit fuller. I think I do like that, although I like keeping it subtle. So let me unmute the rest of the stuff. right, so we've got a little bit more depth. I think that's a good thing. Or again, we got to keep it subtle. One other way to be able to keep it subtle without having like little bumps make a big change in your reverb level is if you take this level here and apply it to the master of your effects send, that can duck it down a little bit, and then you can have more fine tuning control here. So here, this fader's at like -15 and this one's at like -18. If I go to effects 1 and turn this down to -15, and then effects 2 and down to about -18, now I can put these back up at 0, and that's about the right level. So I can fine tune a little bit more and easier at this point. Now let's dive into effects on our vocals. We're gonna have another reverb unit. This one's got the plate already. We're gonna keep about the same reverb time. And I like a little bit longer pre-delay on our vocals. We're gonna go to 90 milliseconds because that's what I like. Well, I don't think I need to do any more tweaking on that. I think that sounds fantastic. You can see the low frequency cuts at like 275, high frequency cuts at about 9K. Feels pretty good to me. I'm not upset about that. Let's move on to our delay. And here I'm gonna hit the library again. We're gonna go to delays, and we're gonna go to stereo tap vocal. We're gonna hit recall, and now we've got our tap tempo set up. One of the things about this is that we need a way to tap the tempo without having to go back to this screen all the time. We wanna be able to not have to go to our effects unit while we're mixing and changing songs, right? So one of the things that we're gonna do is assign a tap tempo soft key, and it's going to be what triggers the time on here. Now, before we do that, we're going to turn this to BPM instead of milliseconds. And this lets us choose which note we want on the left and the right for our delay. I don't know if I mentioned it this video, but there's somebody cutting concrete right outside the window here, and I can't stop them. So we're just gonna have to use some noise reduction plugins later, or just deal with it. So I apologize if that's being distracting for you. So we can change this so that it's a quarter note on both sides. That means that it's basically a mono delay. Or we can change one of these, let's say, to a dotted eighth note. There we go, dotted eighth note, so that there's some syncopation there. And then as we tap our tap tempo button, I think this one's assigned to it. Yep, so our tap tempo is assigned here, but we don't have the tap assigned on this unit. So after we've set our note that we want, we're gonna make sure that we have this set on global tap. That means that the tap tempo that we set up on our soft key will change the tempo here. So I can tap along with the song. Let me play it. That is a big mess when it's turned up this loud, but when we have it more subtle, it adds a nice trail off into the distance, right? It gives that extra little bit of yumminess. Now, if you're a musical nerd and you understand that songs can be in a pentatonic scale, this also means that the note now is harmonizing with the other note later, because all the notes in the pentatonic scale harmonize with one another. It's kind of fun. So you can build some harmonic intricacies with your delay, and that can be fun. So let me pull this back to something a little bit more reasonable and listen to it on and off. This is a lot of fun. I have a blast mixing in effects and getting them just right and making them fit the song. So let's take a look at how to set up our tap tempo as the global tap button for one of our soft keys, and then we'll wrap up this video. So if we go to our setup and then our surface, we've got our soft controls. I want to do it over here because maybe I'm right-handed and I like tapping with my right hand the best. So I'm going to go to soft 8, and this is when you can select global tap tempo you can see that it's at the bottom of this list as you scroll down. So if I didn't have that already there, I would have to hit apply to make sure that that applied and we made the change. And now this, I can change the speed at which I tap, and it can change the tempo at which the delay hits. So if the song changes tempo, or if we have a different song that's a different tempo, we can change that. Or what we can do is tap twice as fast. Instead of a quarter note, now we're tapping on the 8th note, and we can make that feel a little bit different for our delay and experiment without having to go in and tweak settings.
Stand alone in glory and majesty. Stand alone in glory and majesty. Stand alone. You stand alone. So we sing hallelujah, hallelujah for the Lord our God. He reigns. He reigns. We give you glory. You're the Lord, and you reign. Hallelujah for the Lord. Hallelujah for.
I'm going to leave you with 2 more tips. The first one is the filters on the delay. If you make it darker, it's going to push it back a little bit more. And if you make it thinner, it makes it feel a little bit more lo-fi. That can be really cool. So you can do that with the input filters here and here. Somewhere in this region is going to be a good setting. If it's too bright and spitty, or if the S's are jumping out and getting you, you want to take down that low pass filter on this knob right here. You also might want to pay attention to the width, right? You might want to have it fully left and right, or you might want to have those panned a little bit more to the middle on your left and right delays, or you can have it fully mono if you want. Either one of those you can do. And the feedback percentage is how much it's going to keep on repeating back into itself. So if you don't want it to repeat forever and ever and ever, might turn this down a little bit. Or if you just want a couple repeats, you can turn it down to 0, and then that's going to be no extra repeats on top of the first 2. Now, the final tip that I'm going to leave you is that you can send your delay return back into the vocal reverb, and that puts the delay in the same space as the reverb. Let me show you how to do it. We're here on layer B, so we've got our effects returns. If I go to effects 3 send, now I can turn up the delay to be the same level as the vocals that are going into it. And this will put the reverb on the delay as well, tucking that back just a little bit more. If you do this, you might be able to get away with a little bit brighter delay, and you can play around with that and see what works for you in your space. Hey, I hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and mash that thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. I've got more videos about the Allen Heath SQ Series consoles in a playlist linked down below. And if you want all my tips and tricks for setting up your reverbs, getting them timed to the music, and setting up your delays, in addition to my EQ and compression settings that I like to use, check out my live mixing field guide. You can check it out at livemixingfieldguide.com or through the link down in the description below. As always, remember, it's all about the low end. Avoid the Soundtech solo, and nobody leaves church humming the kick drum. We'll see you back here next time on Attaway Audio.